Good evening. This is Eugene Chan on Straight Talk. Our guest this evening is Professor Casey Chan, the former Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury from July 2007 to June 2017. Prior to that, he was Dean of Business and Management in the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. He is currently an adjunct professor and a senior advisor to the Dean at the Hong Kong UST Business School. He's also chairman of WeLab Bank, a virtual bank of a leading Asia fintech company. Welcome, Casey.
Hi, Eugene.
Thank you for coming to the show. It is quite an important time because we're going to have the budget tomorrow.
Okay.
And as you know, Hong Kong is an open economy where international trade of goods and services are of very importance to our financial health. But look at the events of the last few years, in particular with COVID. Hong Kong is virtually closed off from the rest of the world. And where are we right now?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to the show. I have been watching your show, and I really think you have done a great job. So it's very nice to be here. And I think in this moment, I think Hong Kong community is very happy about the border reopening. And from my perspective, I can share with you that I can definitely see that the traffic is coming back. We have bankers coming back to Hong Kong to see their clients, to see their associates. We have business people from mainland as well as overseas coming to Hong Kong. I think definitely, although it's still in a beginning of the reopening, but definitely we are seeing the traffic going back. So of course, the total recovery will take some time because there are a lot of people who are still trying to figure out their next travel plan. And we hope that they would include Hong Kong in the travel plan.
And actually, if you do have a chance to visit the Chet Lap Kok Airport, I'm definitely a lot more busier compared to months ago, where basically you use deserted is what to use. So where are we heading now, since you say people coming back?
Well, I think number one, I think there's some, I would say, low-hanging fruits or lower-hanging fruits, such as the tourist spending. I think we should really try to encourage more tourists, spending in Hong Kong. That would be good for our retail industry, our mall, the shops, and so on. I think that would be achievable because Hong Kong is still a wonderful place to visit. Family reasons, business reasons, as well as leisure reasons. I think the other part that we are doing, which is the government is doing, is really trying to reposition Hong Kong as the finance and trade hub for the world. Now, of course, that will take some time because we are now rebranding, reinventing ourselves. And that will take some time, but I think we are already, having a good start on that.
Right. So, Casey, you know that we are kind of using the normalization of our travel policies right now. What will be your anticipated impact of this on our economic growth? Well,
it's, number one, travel is very important. We mentioned tourists. It's obviously tourist spending is very important. I think tourism, not only it accounts for a huge percent of our GDP, but actually accounts for a lot of employment. We want to see, the hotels back. We want to see the theme parks doing business and restaurants doing business. The other part actually is less tangible, but it's really about the business to business, human to human connection. In the past 3 years, because of the lack of travel, a lot of the fund managers and finance people, the bankers, didn't come to Hong Kong. So when you don't come to Hong Kong, Hong Kong will miss out on a lot of potential investment opportunities. So I definitely see that this reopening, normalization, we going out there and people coming back to Hong Kong will be good for our business, will be good for deal making. Now, give you one example. For the WeLab Bank that I am part of, we didn't go to mainland for 3 years, although we have business, in the mainland. We have potential investment in mainland. Now, last week, actually, our people started going back, and then that's a real, definitely good for the business.
Right, Casey, just now you mentioned that actually a lot of people may not know that although tourism is our fourth pillar of our industry, it only accounted for only like 5% of our GDP, even in good times. But you're saying that although it's only 5%, it's still very important.
Yes, it's still very important because it's not a big GDP contributor, but it's a very good, important contributor to the employment. And also, the people who work in the shops, in the restaurants, they are very, in hotels, That's why it's a very important pillar to us.
Right. Now, recently, Mr. Adjunct, the Secretary for Commerce, Economic and Development Bureau, predicted a revival of Hong Kong's economy in the second half of this year, and in anticipation of our new Hello Hong Kong campaign. Mr. Kevin Yeung, the Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, was here a couple of weeks ago and explained to us about what all the campaign is all about. So what are your thoughts on this Hello Hong Kong campaign? Is it going to do the job that we really want to see?
I think, of course, tourism sector will come back, on their own pace. I predict the pace will be rather fast, rather than slow, because there are a lot of pent-up demand for coming back to Hong Kong. But I believe the government campaign of Hello Hong Kong and so on is more than about tourism. It is really about giving the world's image about Hong Kong's, quote-unquote, being back to business. And that's really for attracting potential investment back to Hong Kong, to get corporations from abroad to look at Hong Kong as a springboard into the mainland. I think there are a lot of messages that we are actually bringing to the world in our campaign. So I don't think tourism is the only beneficiary of the campaign. I see that to be more of a economy-wide campaign to bring back the new opportunities.
They always use the term "seeing is believing."
Yes.
That's the reason why we have like 500,000 tickets, inviting all the dignitaries coming to Hong Kong.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And also the government say they're having talks with some 100 foreign companies about expanding their work in Hong Kong by 2025. That's very encouraging. Will you say this is a turning point for Hong Kong's businesses?
Now, I think going back to talk to many companies is part of the work. You've got to do that, okay? And I think finally, what is a major factor that would really benefit Hong Kong economy will be the new growth opportunities that companies see in Hong Kong, in the mainland, mainly the Greater Bay Area, and in Asia. So basically, we want to position Hong Kong to be the center for doing business in all these areas. Now, I think it's more than just telling people that Hong Kong is back. I think it's telling people Hong Kong is back to doing what. I think we are still continuing to be this important hub, for this region. So clearly, besides the talk, we need to do perhaps a lot more in terms of educating or bringing the messages more clearly to the corporations.
Well, Casey, when you have given a sort of over bird's eye view of Hong Kong right now, things are coming back. But let's look at our niche and the risk that we have in Hong Kong. Often people say Hong Kong is very international. And actually, how international are we? Because if I I did some homework, half the business we do is with mainland, 50%, and even a quarter to 30% with Southeast Asia. And with the Western world, it's only like 10 to 20%. Do you call it international, or do we have room to be even more international?
Well, number one, those statistics actually talk about the strength of Hong Kong, because we are, highly tied up to China. So that's why we do have a lot of mainland exposure presence, for our business, and that is why Hong Kong is, attractive to many corporations worldwide. I think the international part of Hong Kong is being welcoming to companies around the world, whether you are in Europe, Middle East, Southeast Asia. You can use Hong Kong as a hub. That's what makes Hong Kong international. Of course, the use of English language, our customs, in Hong Kong and so on, are very familiar, to the foreign business. That means Hong Kong is an easy place to really get started. Hong Kong is still the most international city, not only in China. I think one of the most international cities in Asia.
Right. When you were in charge in the government as a secretary, financial services is the area that you looked at. It accounts for roughly like 23% of our GDP.
Yes.
To say the least, it is very important. But on the other hand, are we too dependent on this?
Eugene, I am one of the maybe the rare financial service secretary who actually make the point, of saying that Hong Kong cannot rely on finance alone.
Right.
I remember I actually made a speech at the LegCo on this subject. I think Hong Kong cannot just rely on finance. Finance is important, but so is technology, so is innovation. And I think Hong Kong should really develop these new areas because finance cannot grow beyond, I believe, 20% or 20-some%. If you grow beyond that, I think that's not sustainable for Hong Kong.
Casey, before we go to the break, I want to ask you a question. This won't be an easy one to answer, but hopefully you can tell the viewers, because all viewers are very sophisticated. They're expecting more from our guests. So you said that we have a strong fundamentals in our economy, but we are facing more and more competition within our country and the neighboring city. The geopolitical tensions are at all-time high. Interest rates are going up, therefore increasing our cost of doing business. And also we're facing significant manpower and talent shortages in Hong Kong. So can our economy overcome all these challenges, in short?
Well, these are very long agenda, long items, many items. But these items, this kind of tasks and challenges are faced by many economies. Hong Kong not being alone. I think the short answer is that Hong Kong can overcome it. Hong Kong must overcome it, and we can talk more later on. How we can do more in order to increase our chance of success.
Right, okay, Casey, let's go to a break now. And viewers, do stay with us. We will be right back. Welcome back. We've been talking with Professor Casey Chan about Hong Kong's economy, our challenges, and the road to recovery ahead. So, Casey, in the first part, you have given us a bird's eye view of what's happening. People are coming back, and you're confident that despite all the challenges are listed before the first part, you said all the countries are facing the same problems. So people, you can be more assured we are in a good position. So another thing we have noticed is during this pandemic time, you see the virtual offerings of financial services has really been arguably expedited during the years of COVID as people are more willing to use digital banking. And you being the chairman of WeLab, one of the first virtual banks in Hong Kong, maybe you can tell us what has Hong Kong done right or wrong in this growing area?
Well, I think Hong Kong is right in terms of launching and championing fintech. I think Hong Kong is one of the few cities in the world that actually embrace this development of new technology. In terms of the virtual banking licenses or the digital insurance licenses, Hong Kong is actually leading the way, among many cities. I think Hong Kong now, I can say that Hong Kong now is a very sophisticated, efficient financial service place. You can do your financial service easily on your mobile phone, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think that's and the costs are very reasonable. I think Hong Kong is really speaking volume to success of fintech.
Right, but do you think Hong Kong government can do more, or your trade can do more in this?
Well, we are working harder. I mean, I think we're not saying that we just stop there and we're already successful. I think Hong Kong can do more. I think in terms for us, for example, in WeLab Bank, we're trying to promote financial products. How we can actually distribute financial products online, digitally. Of course, our hope is that somehow in the future we can expand our market to outside Hong Kong, including the Greater Bay Area. So there's something that Hong Kong government, I'm sure they have in mind, the agenda, but it will probably include somehow expanding the market offerings for the Hong Kong financial institutions.
Right, Casey, while we have seen new challenger in virtual banks and even insurers to the market, but you see the traditional financial institutions also have stepped up the effort.
Yes.
And many of those have the advantages of owning a massive customer base. So what challenges do these virtual banks and insurers face?
Well, number one, I think that I don't think we should single out virtual bank per se. I think virtual bank is really a part of the whole banking ecosystem. We are all part of the banking industry. Each of the banks will have their history, their legacy, their opportunities, and their strength and weakness. The larger banks have their strength, and so are the virtual banks because of the nimbleness of the virtual banks. We can bring out products faster, I hope, than the larger banks. So I think Hong Kong is basically a very competitive ecosystem, of banks and insurance companies. Now, if the question is, should we just stay in Hong Kong or should we look beyond Hong Kong market? I think for all the banks in Hong Kong as well as insurance companies in Hong Kong, everybody is trying to figure out what is the way to expand beyond the border. I mentioned the Greater Bay Area. In our case, we actually went into a joint venture in Indonesia because we see how we can leverage on Hong Kong's reputation and risk management into launching a service in a very populous, Southeast Asian country. In fact, I would say that when you ask about the Hong Kong economic opportunities, I think Hong Kong really should focus, on the Southeast Asia, on the ASEAN
There's an area
countries.
we discuss it further on, but let me ask you this first. Because when I was preparing to have you on the show, we look at the makeup of Hong Kong's GDP. Logistics used to be very high on the list, but now financial services account for like 23%, and logistics meaning just maybe under 20%. The next one is professional services, like from 13 to 15, and of course tourism, as I said, is 5%. That makes up about 60%. And as you said, Hong Kong should not just rely on this alone, but we are not a manufacturing-based city. How can we value add our services to others? Because I can see a great threat coming up. For example, with all the geopolitical tension, Hong Kong is basically as a middleman. If we're being sort of being sidelined, how can we do all the things I mentioned well?
Now, number one, we cannot remake Hong Kong because being a middleman is really Hong Kong destiny and personality. Because we are, another word to say Hong Kong is a super connector. We are connecting, mainland and the West and in all places. So that is our strength, and I hope that it won't change because it is how we make most of our money.
I mean, the 14 five-year plan that kind of reassured us on that matter. But my point is, should we be worried because that's all we have?
Well, then in fact, I have been one to argue that we should also expand beyond our traditional industry. I'm a big believer in innovation and technology. Innovation and technology doesn't mean that you have to have big factories or a lot of engineers and so on, because these days you can actually be innovative, you can actually produce high value added industry using very little amount of space. You need talent, you need good amount of talent who can put it together. I think Hong Kong is not the leader in this. I definitely think that Hong Kong should become a leader, at least in certain areas, including leveraging on the Greater Bay Area. So I'm a big believer in that. But that would not replace finance.
Right. Just now you mentioned about East Asia.
Yes.
I mean, actually TVB was, the party went there last August and September and came back with very positive feedback from those countries. And actually, if you look at the population, they're right next to our doorstep.
Yes.
Indonesia have 273 million people, Philippines 113, Vietnam about 97 million, or totaling about 500 million in total. It's a very high number. Although their infrastructure is not as sophisticated as Hong Kong, are there opportunities for Hong Kong? Are we too advanced for them for business?
No. I think they actually we can actually find some investment opportunities in these places. I think these are the areas, these are the countries where they are really growing up. I would say they have a huge middle class, in these countries. And when we talk about, in the past, at least in Chinese development, we talk about the population dividend.
Right.
These are the countries with young middle class and the kind of population dividend that we can expect.
So maybe Hong Kong should be concentrating on redeveloping this arm, especially with all the geopolitical factors.
I think Hong Kong should go in there.
Right.
No, I think, of course, through partnership. It's maybe difficult for us to go in alone, but I think we should have partnership and go in these countries.
And with Greater Bay Area, it's something that we have talked about for a long time. In the past was Pearl River Delta area. We've always been talking about that for the last 10 to 20 years, but nothing really has been, in our view, is more should have been done. So with the blueprint being saying that we're going to move in with Greater Bay Area, have you seen any notable bridges that has been built since all this?
Well, I think if you talk about bridges, I think we have much more physical bridges that have been built rather than the soft bridges.
I'm talking about the soft bridges.
The human to human, yes. The technology to technology. I think that's still to be built. Right. I have a great hope on the development of the Hong Kong, the northern metropolis, all the science development area. I think that is important because there's one area where you can actually tie in with the Greater Bay Area. We have the manufacturing in the Greater Bay Area. Then if you have the research and then the marketing and the financing in Hong Kong, using the Northern Metropolis as a hub, we can actually make that happen. There's only, to me, there's only potential, great opportunity of collaboration between the two.
Okay, see, the budget's going to come out tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of it has been decided. But one area I'm sure many viewers will share the same view, that we have good reserves compared to many government. And due to COVID, I mean, it has been very expensive for us. And we also have a decreasing income from land sales. Should the government still continue on the spending spree?
You know, Eugene, I never want to comment on the budget because of my past association with the budget.
Yeah, but in direction-wise, should we still spend?
Okay, now, but in terms of the general area, perhaps I can offer my thoughts on this, because right now there's a big debate in Hong Kong about whether the government should be giving money away and so on and so forth. But
let's talk about the actual direction.
Yeah, let me put it this way. I think Hong Kong definitely need to be much more prudent.
Right.
In balancing the priorities, because we do have, I do think that we face some economic uncertainty this year, even next year, and that means that your revenue will not be as good as before, and then our expenditure has been rising, in the past. So definitely, I don't think Hong Kong should be. I think we should be more frugal,
right?
More careful.
Yeah, the government only have about 800 billion. I mean, still a lot of money of financial service reserves left, which is equivalent to 12 months of government spending. But we used to have 20 months of government spending, right?
Yes, that's true.
So let's ask your last question. I'm sure the individual has said, all right, Professor, you have told us things are looking good. You have confidence in Hong Kong. And from a personal level, Hong Kong people have always been very savvy investors. What is your advice to them now? Should they hold on to the cash, or they go and spend and buy properties or equities or bonds or whatever? What is your say on that?
Well, difficult for me to give investment advice. Everyone is different, right? But I think my own investment philosophy, which is a very, I guess, prudent one, is that you try to be diversified. You don't want to put all the money in one asset or one market. You want to be diversified so that when the market go up and down, you are gaining exposure without taking too much risk. So I would say that even though this year may look uncertain, but let me say that I don't think this year is worse than any other many years. I think every year, even though the prospect is uncertain, it also brings about opportunities.
Right, so thank you, Casey, and we want to thank you again for shedding some light on the complex nature of our economy for us, and we look forward to seeing how tomorrow's budget will navigate the recovery of our economy in 2023. In fact, next week we will have the Financial Secretary Paul Chet on the show to share that with us personally. So viewers, we hope you can join us again. Till then, have a good week and good night.